What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats and another movement skill short story this week for week 9 of the 2025 NFL season. And the play we're going to feature today actually precedes that play that we featured yesterday from Stephon Diggs. It was a play or two before in the drive that actually set up Stephon Diggs' touchdown that we featured in our first movement skills short story of week 9. But this one from DeMario Douglas of the New England Patriots, Pop Douglas as he's known, guy that I wasn't even really aware of in any way, shape, or form because I haven't seen that much Patriots ball in the last couple of years. I was very impressed by, and I think it begins to show how often we can present a constantly changing problem at the sideline for wide receivers, tight ends, or running backs are skilled players in space in presenting different movement problems, dynamic movement problems, emerging movement problems with variable conditions or situations. Again, it kind of picks up where it is that we left off last week and the week before with some of our curved linear agility or some of our complex problem at the boundary from enhancing skill in American football that you see right there. So we're going to get into it here again a couple times through 100% speed. We're going to be able to see DeMario Douglas there coming out of the slot. Drake May, who's been playing out of his mind on this deep, real deep crosser, sort of a staircase going into a crosser before Douglas gets loose in the open field. Let's watch it another couple times through. Sorry for the New England sunset, sunrise, sun over the top of the stadium, Gillette Stadium there. I think I called it Foxborough in my video yesterday. But you can see some of the things that Douglas is up to, and I'm gonna have us pick up right where Douglas catches the ball. Okay. And as we talk about some of the things here that might have led to Douglas, and I know this is pretty hard to see because of the way that the sun is coming down. And again, that's something that I want you to think about as coaching practitioners. One of the reasons why we really lean in our learning environment in this idea of adaptability within adaptability, where we move across the field and around the field. So shadows and sunlight and differing environmental conditions start to factor in and constrain how a player might be behaving. We want to prepare and equip the players for this. So if you always train in the exact same place, on the exact same spot on the field, I would most definitely nudge you to change that mentality. We can see right here its potential influence, right? But that's not the topic of our conversation here today. It's Douglas getting the ball, right? And then I want you to think about complex problem with a chaser. And we're going to show you the diagram later. But if you have the book right here, we got 167 complex problem with a chaser at the boundary. I'm going to show you that in a bit. And then we also have some lateral pursuit work that we could look at. Fast pursuit in space at the boundary on page 168, 169, 169, 170, my bad. And I'm going to lean in on that because I think we can go across situations here with both of these types of movement problems. And we see what's taking place here. Okay. You need to be attuned when you get the ball in hand like this. Okay. Now it goes without saying, but yet I see so many people not really doing it. Okay. This chaser changes how it is that you may aim to behave in relation to a performer here as a ball carrier as well. We can't just look at the angled work between number 3 here and number 3 there, right? Douglas versus Bates. We can't just think about that. If you are Douglas here and you have the ball in your hand, it isn't just angular work in the open field, though we can set really simple movement problems to replicate that in indie period and the like. And that's something I would suggest in doing, right? Give a lot of different looks in this angled work, and I can kind of set that up for you so you can see what it is that I'm referring to. We do a lot of this in our learning environment, either 10 yards long, as you would see here, or 15 yards long, as you would see there. Okay. And so you can see hashes, two sidelines, sometimes a little narrower than that. But oftentimes this is the exact workspace that we utilize with a safety or maybe a backer potentially coming from this type of space with the running back, receiver, or tight end catching the ball here. And then we'll put a chaser from behind. So it speeds up that process of solving this movement problem. When I say this, I would mean that which what is essentially going to take place anywhere here, right? But when we think about what Douglas might be attuned to and adaptable around, he's picking up the behaviors. He's looking here to number 3. I believe that's Jesse Bates, safety for Atlanta. He's picking up where he is might be going, bearing angle, relative velocity values, interpersonal distance here between them and how that's changing. Potentially, he could be, if he is really attuned and sensitive, and he really widens out this perceptual search, or if he keeps his eyes anchored there and immediately looks to the right to try to see if there's any update of threats that he needs to get. All wow. And this is simultaneous, being really attuned and sensitive to what's chasing you from behind, because that could change things dramatically. If you slow down your tempo or pace here at all with a chaser behind you, you're being brought down from behind or risking turning the ball over from behind. So it becomes very, very imperative and important. We can do this 1v2, one offensive player versus 2 defenders, and we can rep that out, repetition without repetition, changing the problem variability where both of these individuals are coming from, maybe the workspace size and the like, maybe how close that chaser might be when the ball carrier gets the ball in hand. Okay. We want to rep that out in indie or crossover periods a lot. And then what we see is we see Douglas's movement behaviors are really sensitive and adaptable around that. And he's running in a way that allows him to coordinate, control, and organize his movement behaviors in relation to both parties, right? Before he then goes into this really highly emergent adaptable actions. And I don't want to miss that either, because once we see him solve this movement problem, put Bates on skates, then we see him look at the head turning, constant scan, constant search for updates on threats and for more relevant information sources and variables about said threats. Like he looks back to see who else is coming, when they're coming, how they're coming. Checkers and chess. Douglas is playing chess here. Okay. So some things that we want to think about, and we want to think about repping out. And again, I'm going to show you, if you don't have the book, I'm going to show you exactly what we're talking about here momentarily, so we can see exactly how it might factor into what emerged for Douglas. And this is not a shock or surprise when you immerse players into these types of problem-solving interactions as to what might actually unfold. Okay, so now if we look ahead, a couple different ways that we can do this, right? Here's one of them. Here's one of them right here. Okay, I talked about it and I'm going to draw on it a little bit. You can see this is from the book, and if you don't have it, you can see what we're referring to here. Here's our chaser, right? Here's our offensive player. They can get that ball in any number of ways. They can catch it like we saw from Douglas. And I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs. They're playing here in front of me. And then we would remove, again, it's just a 1v2, but in this situation, we actually have a 2v4. Okay, here's one offensive player, here's another, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 defenders. You can remove those defenders to change complexity, dial it down actually. But look at the workspace size, exactly that, which what I referred to. before. And then the chaser can start in any number of positions, right? We can have them start this tight. We could have them come chasing in here. We could have that here or potentially at like this type of angle. And that is where we would use cones potentially to get them their starting place, depending on how we're entering the ball to this offensive player. Then as we ramp up in complexity, we would add defenders and or teammates as this complex problem that we see here in this 2 versus 4 interaction could unfold with. Okay. Hopefully all of that makes some sense, but I would start in indie periods and crossover periods, one-on-one or 1v2. Really easy to do. Okay. Really easy to do there. So let's clear that. Let's go over into my other image here. And then we can see fast pursuit in space at the boundary. Same type of idea here, guys and gals. This is a 1v3 here in this situation, but exactly what it is that we're talking about. Again, look at the workspace size. Here our chasers are coming from, obviously, from right to left for the offensive player, where they can get attuned and sensitive to interpersonal distance, bearing angle, relative velocity values, posture, and kinematics in multiple layers and levels of threat of the opponent. We could easily, if we erase that, clear that, put our player, our chasing player, coming from behind. So if we would move this guy in this one, interacting with that one, right? Almost identical, guys and gals. That slice and snippet of the game. What we're not trying to do is replicate it, but we're trying to simulate it and immerse players in similar movement problems in our training, practice, and learning environment so they can get sensitive and attuned to what might be there. I want to draw your attention, if you do have the book. If you don't have the book, hopefully this will be helpful as well. On every single practice activity, we give a guidance example. How might we guide different players in this type of learning environment? Well, whether it's from the offensive side or the defensive side, on page 170, when we're talking about this respective activity, fast pursuit in space at the boundary, we say, we could tell one of the defenders, any of the defenders, what do you notice about the ball carrier's movement behaviors that are informing you of how he is attempting to act or where he might be headed? I want you to think about that. I'll repeat that again. What do you notice about the ball carrier's movement behaviors that are informing you of how he is attempting to act or where he might be headed? Think about that. Think about that right now, even as we look back to Douglas, Pop Douglas here. Okay. How is that player acting? And how are his behaviors informing you about where he might be going or how he's attempting to act? Draw your defenders' education of attention and intention to and around the behaviors of another, the behaviors of the offensive skill player, so they become sensitive and attuned to those behaviors, and they can, most importantly, become adaptable around it so they don't go put on skates, just like what happened to Atlanta on Sunday against DeMario Douglas, Pop Douglas. Kudos to you, my friend. I will be watching a little closer as time goes on here to see what it is that you're up to and how it is that you continue to solve movement problems. So hopefully all of that was helpful for you guys and gals. If it was, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, like. You guys know the drill. Put it out to your people. Put comments in the section below if you want to hear me talk about any different thing than that, which what I'm leaning in on. But hopefully you found this movement skill short story to be beneficial. For Sean Mishka, Football Beyond the Stats, I am the Movement Miyagi. I will talk to you all next time.